Hi guys. So for me, where I live in Florida, the 20th anniversary of 9/11 is almost over. And I couldn't let it pass without saying something. I debated all day whether or not to make this video, or it will be a small series of videos on that day. Because I was alive when it happened. I was 6. And then I came to the realization that there's a whole generation, especially here on this app, on social media, that they know what happened this day 20 years ago, but they weren't alive for it. It's a fixed point in their history. It was something that is history to them. And I can't just let it be glossed over. Not when I was alive when it happened. Not when I still have memories of that day. So, here's my story. It was a nice day outside. Sunny, if I remember correctly. I was inside playing with the dogs. My Grammy raised Shih Tzus, so I was playing with the dogs. I had a newborn sister. Well, not newborn. She was 6 months old at the time, but my mom had her with her at school. Both my parents were at school. They were both teachers. My papa was at school. My Grammy was watching me. And the phone rang. I was just watching my kids' shows, in the living room, just laying on the floor. And when that phone rang, something felt off. My Grammy, she went and answered that phone, and I knew something was wrong the minute she picked it up. She went still. She was frozen, just listening to whoever it was on the other line. I don't know who called. And after she hung up, still gripping that phone, she said, "Tornado drill, now." Now, we don't really have to worry about tornadoes in Florida. Now, we don't have to really worry about tornadoes in Florida. But she grew up in Indiana, where there were lots of tornadoes. So this was just the thing that we did. My procedure for a tornado drill was I was to grab one of the dogs and get in the cupboard. And so I did that immediately. I'd never questioned a tornado drill, but something felt different. I could tell she was scared. So I took one of the dogs, got in the cupboard, and I stayed there. I was there for what felt like forever, what felt like hours. It was probably only a few minutes. And I could tell she had changed the channel. Flip to live TV. And she just started sobbing, praying. I couldn't hear what was happening. I was in the little cupboard, the door was shut. And after a while, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what was happening. So I cracked open the little cupboard door, and I saw her just collapsed on the floor, kneeling in like a heap, staring at the TV with just tears running down her cheeks while she just earnestly prayed. And I looked to the TV, and I see smoke billowing out of a building. And I was scared, and I didn't know why, but I was. And I went to her because I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand to see her crying like that and be all alone. And I went to her and I hugged her, and she said, "Get back in the cupboard, tornado drill now." I didn't listen. I just hung on to her for dear life. And after a few seconds, she grabbed me with the same ferocity that I was holding on to her with. And she just pulled me close. She pulled me into her lap and she squeezed me, and she was still just sobbing and praying. And then the second plane hit. And she screamed. She just started saying, "No, no, 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 no." And I looked at the TV and saw that there were now two burning buildings. Well, two buildings with smoke pouring out of them. The newscasters were just silent. Shocked, I'm assuming. And I just watched as they filmed this disaster, this horrible thing that was happening. And I asked my grandma what was happening, what was going on, because I was scared. I was picking up on her fear. And then obviously, once I realized that that wasn't a movie, I was scared because this was something that was happening somewhere. And she said, "Do you remember how we talked about the Twin Towers in your school lessons?" And I mean, she wasn't calm about it, but she asked me that. And I said yes. And she said, "Evil men just flew planes into the two towers." And I was just stunned. I said, "Why would they do that?" And she just started crying and grabbing me and holding me because the towers were falling. And people were jumping. Obviously, and thankfully, I wasn't there in person to see it. I know a lot of people who were. But people were jumping out of that building, and I knew what happened when people jumped from a very, very high spot. Images that formed in my mind from just seeing that on TV has haunted me for years. Not just people jumping, but people burning alive, people choking and dying on smoke. Those are images that I formulated in my head when this was all happening on TV, and my grandma was crying, and they've never gone away. So I was in shock. I was little. I mean, I told you I was only 6 when it happened. But I was also sad. I was scared and I was sad. And in the following days, even though I knew my parents and my grandma and my papa were trying to protect me, I learned so much more about what had happened that day. All the stuff that I didn't see, all the stuff that I didn't know. The fact that the two planes that crashed into the towers had been taken over by people that we were now calling terrorists. The word had existed before, but never applied to America. It was like a foreign term. and that there were a bunch of people on that plane. Both of them, all of them actually, because there were 4. One for each Twin Tower, one for the Pentagon, and one that was believed to be heading for the White House that managed to be taken back by those brave, brave people on that plane. But they still crashed into Philadelphia, and they died. And at that time, terrorism, it was, like I said, it was foreign. It didn't happen in America. It didn't happen to us at home, but I remember that feeling of fear that grew over those next days and weeks as we just didn't know what to expect. I was so scared that my parents were going to go to school and not come back because someone flew a plane into the school. It didn't matter to my younger brain, of course, what the chances of that were. It only mattered that my home was in danger. And that feeling of fear has just grown. That day changed everything. It really did. It changed absolutely everything about the way that we view terrorism. Because before, it had never happened to us. I knew about wars, obviously. I knew about the Americans that fought and died for our freedom. I knew about the Revolutionary War and all that. But this was something completely different. This was, like my grandma said, evil men trying to control and attack our country with fear. And it started a nightmare. Kids these days, it astounds me that I don't feel that old, but it astounds me that we have children in schools. Actually, every child in school, unless they're 20, that they weren't alive when this happened. For them, this is history. This is a lesson. This is something removed. Even though I was only 6, the impact that day caused was just insurmountable. Honestly, I feel like that feeling of fear that just permeated every community across America didn't go away. Actually, it hasn't. It's never gone away, but it didn't even lessen it, I feel like, for years. And now it's been 20 years. And we can't forget. We can never forget the day that changed our country. We can never forget the day that thousands upon thousands of people died because of evil men. We can't forget that we're still fighting wars because of this, that people are still dying because of this. Never forget. I will never forget. It doesn't matter that I wasn't in New York. It doesn't matter that I was 6. What matters is that I was alive to witness it, and that even though it was horrible, I can now tell the story of that day and how it affected my family and my community to other people. And if you were alive when that first plane struck the first Twin Tower, I encourage you to do the same. Never forget. Share your story. It doesn't matter how far removed you were. If it impacted you, share it. Because it impacts us to this day so heavily, and a lot of people don't even realize that. We should not let the significance of what happened or the deaths of those people go unrecognized or unremembered or glossed over. So remember today. Remember 20 years ago today. And never forget. I love you guys.